The last time Ohio State had a player drafted number 1 overall, it was offensive lineman Orlando Pace, who went to the St. Louis Rams. It's been nearly 25 years since that day, and Buckeyes fans are anxiously awaiting a player good enough to be taken with that first selection. Since 2013, every single starting cornerback for the Buckeyes has been drafted, and it is a streak that no one wants to end. They have a really talented group of backs this year, but one of them in particular will not only help keep that streak, but could potentially go number 1 overall in the draft. Yes, you heard that right, a corner going number 1 overall. According to some sources and some sports books, he has a chance to be that top pick, and in today's video we're going to go through who he is, why he is so good, and if he could go number 1 overall. But right before we get into that, nearly 80% of you guys are not subscribed to the channel, and I know we can do better than that, so please be sure to hit that button as I really appreciate it. Also, this will be the first video in my series taking a look at 2022 NFL Draft prospects, so without further ado, let's get started. So at this point, you're probably wondering who the heck I'm talking about, and it is none other than Seyvn Banks. I made an Ohio State football preview a couple weeks ago, and I mentioned the fact that some people have him going number 1 overall, and I've gotten a lot of hate for that comment, but I mean, I'll put the article and the source up on the screen right now so you can see it. While I don't necessarily believe he'll go number 1 overall, the fact that people are talking about it and that there is a chance means something. But who the heck is Seyvn Banks? Let's go back in time and see who he is. When his mom was coming up with a name for her son, she said that nothing clicked, and she wanted something that was both unique and full of meaning. She decided to look to the Bible and go with the name Seventh. The name symbolizes completion, as on the 7th day, the world was made. He had an inspiring name and a family history full of football success. His older brother Marcel Harris was a big-time football player ahead of him, and this is where Seventh got a lot of his inspiration from. He said, quote, "I've always wanted to follow in his footsteps, and it's amazing how I'm developing myself as a player. I grew up watching my brother and some of his friends in this game, so it's actually a lifelong dream of mine." He had that to say before he was named to the Under Armour All-American game, but let's go back a little bit. Seventh was always blessed genetically from a young age, and apparently he was always so much bigger, stronger, and faster than everyone else that they would move him to a city league with better players, and he actually played against older competition. He started out at a smaller high school, but then would transfer to a place called Jones High School, and that's when the recruiting buzz would begin to grow. He played both wide receiver and defensive back, but he would be hit with a major setback. During a private workout, he apparently had torn his ACL, and he would miss his entire junior campaign. If you're a football player yourself, or anyone who is familiar with how recruiting works, that is a devastating time for an athlete to get injured, as your junior year is usually when you go to most of those camps and get a lot of your attention. Still though, his film would land him over 20 scholarship offers, and while he was rehabbing, he was also getting recruited. While he was born and raised in Gainesville, the Gators were never really much of a factor. They did apparently make a late push at the end, but I guess they just never saw him as their first option. So despite his brother going there, he would not become a Gator. So where was he going to go? Well, he pretty much had offers from every big school, but Ohio State really stuck out to him. He had a relationship with head coach Urban Meyer and really took a liking to Greg Schiano, who was the defensive coordinator at the time. He said, quote, "I just felt like Ohio State can develop me into a great athlete I know I can be. Coach Greg, Coach Urban, they can help take me to that next level." While he was deciding where he was going to go, he went to Ohio State's spring game, and at that point, he was completely won over by the Buckeyes coaching staff and the atmosphere at the game, and decided to commit. He said, quote, "I like the coaches, and I love the way they are together. I haven't been out of Florida like that, and Ohio State is great. They have a lot to offer me." So yeah, Seyvn Banks had now committed to the Ohio State Buckeyes, and he was a huge name, and someone who was going to be big time in the future, as it was a matter of when, not if. According to 24/7 Sports, Banks was a 4-star recruit, the number 23 cornerback, and the 221st best player in the class of 2018. Going into the 2018 season, Urban Meyer was the head coach of the Buckeyes, and many did not know it would be his last year at the helm. During that season, Dwayne Haskins became the quarterback, and this team was also loaded with talent with guys such as Nick Bosa, Chase Young, and Chris Olave. Banks would end up appearing in 5 games as a true freshman, but he really only recorded stats in a game against Maryland. Ohio State had a pretty weird season, as they would beat TCU in a neutral site matchup, defeated number 9 Penn State in College Game Day, and also took care of number 4 Michigan, but they had a weird loss on the road to Purdue where they got blown out. Seyvn Banks only really appeared in that Maryland game, and if you were a diehard college football fan, many of you guys remember that as one of the most entertaining games that year. Maryland would lose 52-51 in overtime, as they would fail on a 2-point conversion, and Ohio State really lucked out. From there, the Buckeyes would beat Northwestern in the Big Ten Championship, and they would get to number 5 in the country, and they would be left out of the college football playoff as they are ranked number 5. They they still went to the Rose Bowl, where in Urban Meyer's last game, they would beat Washington. 2019, his role would go up a little bit, but he still was not a starter or an NFL draft prospect by any means. Ryan Day was now the head coach, and Justin Fields was the new quarterback, so things did look a little bit different for them. He never registered more than 2 tackles, but he still appeared in 9 games as a sophomore. The Buckeyes were picked to finish second in the Big Ten, but they ended up having a spectacular year. They ended up beating Cincinnati, Michigan State, Wisconsin, Penn State, and Michigan, as they finished regular season at 12-0 and would go to the Big Ten Championship, where they would beat Wisconsin. They were ranked number 2 in the college football playoff rankings, where they lost a heartbreaker to Trevor Lawrence and the Clemson Tigers, as Fields threw a late pick. But he would get his opportunity. Both Jeff Okudah and Damon Arnett would leave for the 2021 NFL Draft, so going into the 2021 season, Banks was going to have a chance to start. Him and Shaun Wade were seen as the 2 best corners on the team, and while Wade did pretty much disappoint last year, Seyvn did not. In 8 games, he finished with 23 tackles and 1 interception, and he is a projected 3rd-team preseason All-American. And going into 2021, Banks is going to have a huge role. While he has battled an injury in the spring, I expect a big year from Banks, and could he really be a number 1 overall pick? Well, after looking at his stats and how he's done so far, I'm pretty confused as to why some sites and betting services think he could be the number 1 overall pick, because he really hasn't done a whole lot to this point, but I guess it's just based off potential and what people are hearing. According to the Letterman Row, they said, quote, Banks can go as high as he wants. If he puts in the work this summer and develops into a cornerback that can be put on an island with a team's wideout, there is no reason his name can't creep into the top 5 or even number 1 overall pick conversation. I really don't know what my opinion on this, as I guess this is just all based on potential. Jeff Okudah playing terribly as a rookie last year is definitely not going to help, and with guys such as Spencer Rattler and Kayvon Thibodeau being there, I really don't see any scenario in which Banks goes number 1 overall, but I mean crazier things have happened. Either way, Banks has a pretty cool story. He's someone who could break out into a superstar next year, and will definitely be a high-end pick in next year's draft, but for now, we're just going to have to wait and see. To answer the question of the title of this video, could he be the number 1 overall pick in next year's draft? The answer is yes, but I think the odds are extremely low. What do you guys think though? How good do you think Banks is? Who do you think will go number 1 overall in next year's draft? And which 2022 draft prospect should I take a look at next? Be sure to let me know down in the comment section. Hit that like button if you want to support today's video. Subscribe if you are new here, and check out all my other videos on the end screen, including my preview for the 2021 Ohio State Buckeyes. I hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.